If we move on to Chelsea, now they announced losses of £90 million for the season just gone and £121 million for the season previous. Do you think there's huge trouble incoming at Stamford Bridge, Keith? Are they in sort of hot water to avoid deduction?
Well, they've said, themselves that they continue to be in compliance with the PSR rules and regulations. That would mean if they are, there's going to be a fire sale of talent. My sources have told me that Todd Boehly was recently down in Saudi Arabia, potentially trying to arrange sales ahead of time of some players down to the Saudi League. That could be one way that they try and get some quick sales in right at the end of the season, the start of the window. It's going to take some pretty fancy footwork to be able to do that. But there is a connection down there. Michael Emenalo, who's now the supremo for player transactions in the Saudi Premier League, of course, has a long relationship with Chelsea, and so that's where I'm being given some postings that may be the way they're looking. I think to go into the general market of selling players to other clubs to try and clear up this sort of shortfall would be very hard to get to the scale of deals they're looking for. So it could be that the Saudi League tends to be the big escape hatch for them. And if that's the case, then they could just about get away with it by the skin of their teeth.
Wow, okay, that's massive. And is that homegrown players, or is that players they've brought in? Are there any specific names potentially that have been spoken about that could go?
Nothing that I can give you in terms of a name, but certainly I think they want to keep homegrown players as much as possible. But I know that some of the ones that have been bought or recently under the Boehly regime have been mentioned in discussions. And so we'll see what comes out of there. But there's some big names, and they paid some big money for them. And we'll see. That could be their escape hatch.
I mean, big names, big money. Are you expecting big sales then? Are we talking huge figures for these stars or players?
Yeah, I think we are. I think we're talking in the 60, 70 up to 80 million sort of range for maybe one or two, three players. And so it's going to take that level of sales to get Chelsea back into the situation. So I'm sure that there'll be a lot within Chelsea that realise they moved too quickly in certain areas, and perhaps would actually welcome a reset like this, particularly, obviously, if we get them out of the points deduction situation. So it's watch this space as we go towards the end of the season.
What do you think Boehly's saying throughout all this process now? If they know they have to sell and they've got a deadline of June the 30th, will he effectively be pressing the green light on those sales? Where do you think he will stand?
I think they'll want to avoid a points deduction at every cost, certainly. And I think he will also be happy to potentially now, if he's starting to believe in Pochettino, which we're led to believe that there is peace breaking out, then they give him the chance to reset the squad and actually have a bigger say in that. But it's hard to know how player decisions are made at Chelsea these days and what's really going on. With the old regime, it was pretty transparent with Marina, who I dealt with many times, and Bruce Buck. They knew their stuff. They knew what they were doing. And so, but we've seen in Chelsea recently that, it's been an attempt to move things too quickly, perhaps, and spend too big without cementing a proper team spirit together. Hopefully they can reset and do that.
And Keith, from a sort of contractual perspective with players, of course, we saw them sort of break boundaries and give 6, 7, 8 year deals. Is that likely to change as well then, so they don't effectively fall foul of FFP, PSR, all the rules?
Well, it is fascinating. This is an issue they've now got because they've done those long contracts at the start. And so some of these players we're talking about potentially having to move have got that, that leverage in their bargaining position. So it's going to be a very tricky thing for them to negotiate and to handle. There's going to be a lot of money being paid in terms of recouping some of these years of these long-term contracts that players and agents will want to be settled before they'll actually think about moving. So there's going to be a lot of tricky financial negotiation. It's a bit of a mess, to be honest. But otherwise, if they don't get this done, then yes, points deduction looks pretty clear, and it could be a big one as well, because it'd be a major breach if it does happen.
Do you think Boehly will be regretting this now? On top of course, as we know, the Premier League, we're talking about looking into the era of Abramovich and some of those problems. This is also, I said, effectively another issue unless they can get these sales over the line. Will Boehly be sitting there now actually thinking, I don't know why I went and we bought X, Y, and Z?
Well, I think Todd Boehly is a classic master of the universe type investment banker as well, who believes that he knows everything. I think he's come across into British football thinking he could impose certain lessons he'd done in the US sport. He learned pretty quickly that it doesn't work like that. And I think he will be regretting things, although whether he will admit it to himself is a different thing, because the egos of these guys are incredible.